Welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day and supporting the movement here. A lot of breaking news to get into going into this Niners Week 16 game against the Colts after Week 15 and that victory against the Tennessee Titans yesterday. And I do want to start off with some good news here for San Francisco on the injury front as the playoffs are approaching going into this Monday Night Football game against the Colts. San Francisco getting healthier and some reinforcements on the way, but we also have some bad injury news that we need to get to as well, which we talked about on the earlier today on the 49ers Report. Speaking of this Niners-Colts game, by the way, it's going to be fascinating for so many reasons. The Colts still fighting for their playoff lives. They have now lost 4 games in a row. The 49ers on the opposite trajectory of that. They've won 4 games in a row. Brock Purdy coming off his best game of the year in which he was moving around in a really impressive fashion, throwing it, running it. I thought he looked tremendous. For the Colts, though, a lot of quarterback questions and a lot of crazy scenarios at that position over the last week and change. So Daniel Jones tears his Achilles. Then the Colts work out Phillip Rivers. Hadn't played since 2020. 44 years old. He's a grandpa, older than the Colts head coach and the OC. They sign him last week. He plays against Seattle. Nearly leads the Seahawks to a victory. And he played well enough where Colts head coach Shane Steichen said today that Phillip Rivers is going to start again on Monday night against the Niners. And it's not from a standpoint of me being excited to watch him because it's us watching a generational quarterback right now. I do think that Phillip Rivers, who's Hall of Fame eligible and is no longer Hall of Fame eligible because he's playing for the Colts, is going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. And yesterday you saw some old school quarterbacking where he was able to make some adjustments and audibles at the line and then react post-snap with where to go with the football. And sometimes today, with watered-down quarterback play, you don't always see that. But the fact that he's playing at 44 years old, probably 20 to 30 pounds overweight in prime time, in a huge game for San Francisco, with the Niners defense that struggled mightily yesterday against a bad Titans team, I want to see how Robert Saleh and this defense fares against Shane Steichen, great play caller, and Phillip Rivers. So I can't wait for this one. As far as the Niners injury news, these players returning to practice this week. Tatum Bethune with that high ankle. That'll give the Niners some reinforcements at linebacker. Same can be said for defensive end Sam Okuayinonu, who will get some snaps, of course, at defensive tackle. He had a high ankle sprain. Yetur Gross-Matos will continue to practice. His practice window opened last week with that hamstring. Spencer Burford checking out well after getting banged up yesterday. Kendricks had that calf issue last week. He'll return to practice. And then Jordan Elliott hurt his leg before the game, a late scratch. He, too, going to return to practice. That is not believed to be a long-term injury. As far as rookie linebacker Nick Martin, who San Francisco drafted in the 3rd round out of Oklahoma State, he flies around, plays like a bat out of hell. I can't wait for him to get more consistent snaps. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen until next year. He remains in concussion protocol against Cleveland. He got hurt, laying a big hit on a special teams play. For wide receiver Jacob Cowing, who has some vertical speed, 4'4" guy, can be used as a gadget weapon. He hurt his hamstring to start training camp, running routes against air, and he has re-injured his hamstring 3 other times in trying to come back. His practice window will open next week. Will he be a factor for this Niners offense? I'm just not sure. Unfortunately, his sophomore campaign could be a wash. What has happened to Jordan Watkins, one of the more explosive wide receivers in college football last year, the only player in the nation to have 5 catches of 60-plus yards? He was great in becoming the number 1 wide receiver for Jackson Dart, Lane Kiffin, and Ole Miss once Trey Harris got hurt. He was really good in the summer. He had that 50-yard score from Mac Jones in the preseason at Levi's. Then he hurt his ankle, and he hasn't been able to be seen since. He got limited action a few games ago against Houston, but Kyle Shanahan said today he needs to be better than the players in front of him and be more consistent in practice. As for the bad news for the Niners here, this is not great, and I was worried about this after the game, and I was thinking it during the play late when Pearsall on that comeback route caught the ball from his knees and then limped to the sideline. I was saying to myself, oh shoot, did he re-injure his PCL? And Kyle Shanahan is concerned about Ricky Pearsall's knee and the re-aggravation of that injury. For those of you who don't know, the PCL really stabilizes the knee. For a wide receiver, this is a troublesome injury because if you don't have a stable knee, you just don't feel confident in cutting, putting weight on it, misdirection, and being able to run routes. So for him to re-aggravate that, there's a possibility he could be out for multiple weeks. On top of that, he also has a low ankle sprain from that hip drop tackle on the first play of the game, which I'm not sure how that play did not get flagged. Textbook hip drop tackle. And now the Niners not sure if Pearsall will practice this week. It's an extended week for the Niners, but I'm not feeling good about this one. Pearsall against Tennessee, 7 targets, 6 catches, 96 yards. It was his best game since the start of the year. And he got hurt in week 4, hurt the PCL. Then he didn't come back until Purdy came back against Arizona. So he missed a ton of time. It's unfortunate that the start of his career, with some injuries, the gunshot wound, he hasn't been able to find his groove. You see glimpses of him becoming a special player, extremely dynamic, really good route runner, awesome footwork, good hands. He's a deep ball threat. This year, 31 catches, 443 yards in limited action. But he has become a pretty injury-prone player, which is definitely problematic for San Francisco here. This is a cool story. Nick Wagner tweeting this out from the Kyle Shanahan press conference that Kyle Shanahan said the 2 times that the Niners have elevated defensive tackle Sebastian Valdez, otherwise known as the Hulk, but then had him inactive, was meant as a means to reward his hard work when they don't need both elevations in a week. Valdez, with the Niners elevating him, gets a game check, which is a nice bonus from the standard practice squad amount. So that's pretty cool for Valdez, working hard, and I do think that he can become a pretty solid player over time for the Niners from that defensive tackle spot popped throughout the preseason and in training camp. A reminder, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're bringing you daily Niners coverage just like this. The proof is in the pudding, man. We're building something special. That's why we're approaching 184,000 subscribers. So lock us in and hit that sub button today. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in the game. Sign up today. You won't regret it. It makes game days so much more fun. And there's a reason why millions of people have signed up with PrizePicks, because it is the go-to daily fantasy sports app in North America. And look, it's the holiday season, the best time of year for sports. Bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. While you and I are out here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which game to watch, there's one place where it feels good to be right. That place is PrizePicks. New feature alert. PrizePicks now has early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out of those winnings before the game even finishes. Look, is your fantasy season already over? Your team might be cooked, but with PrizePicks, you don't have to wait until next year's draft. PrizePicks lets you play fantasy football every week. Pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projections every week. No draft required. 3-pick power play for Monday Night Football tonight. Aaron Rodgers more on the passing yards. Devon Achane more on the rushing yards. And then DK Metcalf has to find the end zone. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Okay, let's get to Brock Purdy here. Very impressed with how Brock Purdy balled out against the Tennessee Titans. I thought from start to finish, it was his best game of the year. He was very dynamic with his legs. He made great plays out of structure. He threw with great velocity, which tells me coming off the bye week, an extra week of rest, that toe is healing up pretty well, if not 100%. And I thought that Purdy had total command of the offense, and he was very efficient, very decisive, and just knew where to go with the football. And obviously, those have been strengths for Purdy since he came into the league in 2022. And in talking about Purdy making great plays improvisationally out of structure, Brock Purdy off script against Tennessee. These are plays of more than 2.5 seconds, right? 17 to 23. 235 yards, and all of his 3 touchdowns came on those plays. Now, the Niners will certainly miss Ricky Pearsall because he accounted for nearly 100 receiving yards. He was targeted 30% of the time from Brock Purdy. So if he does miss some time, that's a big loss for San Francisco here. Good news is Demarcus Robinson got a little bit more involved. Jawan Jennings has been really good. George Kittle is playing elite football. He had 78 yards after the catch yesterday against Tennessee. That was more than some teams had in total receiving yards across the National Football League. And, of course, in that receiving core, got to give a shout-out to Kendrick Bourne for what he's given this team. As for some concerns I have, furthermore, with this Niners defense, we talked about this a little bit earlier today, the coverage breakdowns, the 2 missed interceptions, giving up 6.8 yards per carry. The Niners yesterday had 11 pressures and 0 sacks. If you don't get pressure on the quarterback when you take on good quarterbacks in the playoffs, you're not going to last long in the big dance. So this is players having to win their matchups. This is Robert Saleh having to get creative, make chicken salad out of chicken shit in order to try to drum up pressure on the quarterback. Don't forget to give me a follow on social media. I'm on X, Instagram, TikTok, at Chase_Senior. Just started that TikTok page. Give me a shout over there. I appreciate it.